good afternoon, or good morning, social work family, wherever you may be joining us from today. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes. We'll let folks hop on. In the meantime, if you would like to drop in the chat any social medias that you'd like to share, LinkedIn's, Facebook's that you want to network. We love to do some virtual networking before we get started. We'll hopefully get to know you all a little bit more soon as we get today's session started in just a couple of minutes, but please feel free to drop your information into the chat. We will also have our February programs registration open probably this week. That session is going to be on exploring careers in medical social work. We've got a really great panel of social workers from across the US who are going to talk about their career trajectory and how to get into that particular sector of social work. So we'll probably see some of you back next month as well, but we're so happy that you joined us today. All right, well, I got 6 after, so we'll go ahead and get rolling. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Dwayne Brejak. I'm the Executive Director for the NASW Michigan chapter. Shout out to all my cold folks here in the Midwest. We are so happy that you have chosen to spend your evening or afternoon with us today for our first student series event of 2024. We have a really great group of individuals who are going to you'll get to know over the next hour and a half. We're going to talk about when micro meets macro in advocacy. As we get into another election year, we know that there's a lot of buzz about how social workers, social work students, social work programs can be involved in advocacy work. And so this session today is going to run through lots of ways to get involved now, pre-election, post-election, and hopefully throughout your career. If you've got questions for our panelists today, we'll have some time for Q&A. Feel free to drop those into the chat. We do ask folks, please keep your lines muted if you're able to until we get to the end, where if you've got other questions you'd like to voice, feel free to use the raise hand feature. Like I mentioned, please feel free to drop any socials in the chat if you have other resources to share. And then we will be recording the session and have this available on the NASW National Student page. So please make sure to check that if you need to exit a little bit early. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my fabulous colleague, Dawn Brown from the Florida chapter. Dawn, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Really appreciate being here with you and sharing space with everyone. As my wonderful colleague said, my name is Dawn Brown, and I have the privilege of serving as the Executive Director for NASW Florida and the Virgin Islands. I'm very excited to be here with you today. As a former social work educator at the University of South Florida in Tampa, I really do appreciate this title, this topic, and being able to talk about micro and macro and all of our levels of practice. And most importantly, the importance of advocacy, which is the core of what we do as social workers. So with that being said, what I want to do is invite you, because you're going to be able to have some time, as Dwayne mentioned, to ask questions, but we want to make this interactive. We want you to be able to use the chat feature. So first and foremost, I want to reiterate, as Dwayne said, please feel free to put your social media handles down there. But if you don't have one, just put who you are and from where in this country or beyond that you currently are at. We are in Florida, as Dwayne mentioned, in cold Michigan. We've had our own fair share of cold, but really want to invite you to put where you are. I see Boston represented, Chicago. Okay, Iowa, thanks for being here. Who else we have out there? Louisiana, Northeast Florida, Northwest Florida, Jersey, North Carolina. The Michigan, I see lots of Michigan there, Dwayne. I see some Florida, Georgia. Welcome. We're so happy to have you all with us. New York, Pennsylvania. This is such a beautiful thing, right? Because we're from all over the country, folks are represented. So we're going to all bring different lived experiences and different questions to this space. And that's how we all continue to learn. We have Tampa, Florida. Hello, good to see you, Pedro. So one of the things, please feel free to keep putting your information in the chat. We'd love to see where you're from. We want to invite you to be in this space. This is a space that we co-create, that we work together on, and that we learn together on. And so we're here to share space with everyone. The other thing I'm going to ask you to do, since we are going to talk about macro practice and micro practice, but how we get into that advocacy, can you briefly just in the chat tell us about one experience you've had in macro practice? What is something you've done? Have you done any advocacy work? Have you done any administrative work? Have you done any work related to that? Or are you interested in doing that work? If so, I invite you to put that information into the chat for us to consider as we're thinking about the different experiences that exist to this. So it's wonderful. Thank you, Anna, for getting us started. Advocacy at Social Work Advocacy Day. We love that. We love to know that you've attended, you've been there. We really do enjoy and appreciate that. Thanks for sharing that. Thank you, Casey. Interested in macro legislative session as it contains the nicotine from Washington. Thank you. I see some grant development writing. Wonderful. You just started a job in communication education, focusing on LGBTQ plus issues. It looks like we have folks in here that we can listen and learn from too, based on the chat so far. So thank you for sharing. Please continue to share there. We want to invite you to talk about those experiences. All your experiences are valued and important. And I'm going to actually move us just along slightly here. And what we're going to do is I have the opportunity to introduce our first two wonderful speakers. Let me just say this from NASW, Florida. I feel truly blessed to be able to work with these two people that I will introduce. Please keep in mind, we work with a lot of people in life, but I feel pretty blessed, but also fortunate that I'm working with these folks who are not only action-oriented leaders, but who are guided with compassion and conviction in the work that they do. So the first person I'm going to introduce is Dr. Sharon Gandaria. She is our NASW Florida president. Dr. Gandaria has served as a professor at several different schools of social work across the country. Dr. Gandaria is also a former New York police officer who has done extensive work, practice, and research with intimate partner violence, particularly with undocumented Latinas. So that is such an important area of work that's been done. And not only has she done it in practice, but in research and really providing support within the community. The next person I'm going to introduce to you is Christina Cazanave. She's our NASW Florida Legislative Committee Chair and the Director of Internship and Instructor for Undergraduate Social Work Programs at St. Leo University. Christina has had extensive experience turning theory from the curriculum into practice into the work that we do, not just for students, but for practitioners in Florida. She's done an amazing job leading our legislative committee to provide advocacy education, outreach, and opportunities to our members and our future members. We don't want to forget about our future members. Y'all are important too. So please join me in welcoming Christina and Sharon, who will start our presentation.
Well, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be in fellowship with all of you tonight. I'm inspired by what you all were putting in the chat. And as Dawn said, I would love to hear more from all of you too. And just a little bit about what you're doing, what you're seeing, boots on the ground, and how this experience makes you feel. So definitely connect. I know Sharon and I put our LinkedIn information into the chat. So just scroll up if you missed it. And let's connect so that we can learn from each other, because I only know the work that I do based on the collaborations and the networks that I have with all of you. So Dawn did an amazing job in introducing us all, but that we are the team for you tonight. We are the Florida chapter team. Dawn she doesn't give herself enough credit. She is our fearless leader down in Florida. She's the executive director of NASW Florida and the Virgin Islands, and she has done remarkable. She had a busy day today. She was up in our Capitol lobbying for our social work compact bill. So she was there representing all of us here in the state of Florida with our lobbyists and hanging out with some really cool legislators. One that I'm kind of jealous that she got to see today, who is also a social worker in our legislature. So we're really excited, and the privilege of being able to work side by side with her. And of course, the fabulous Sharon Gondaria Javier, who you're going to hear from in a couple of minutes. She is our president, and she has definitely moved us in a wonderful direction in how we look at all kinds of different issues, but particularly our relationships with police officers and the great work that we can do alongside them as social workers. So let's get into tonight. You know, when we were starting to look at how do we this presentation, and definitely making sure that we speak to all levels of practice in the room. One of the things that we thought was so important was talking about what is macro practice. And the reason we do this is if you think back on your education and thus far, and you're not in a macro focused curriculum, you may have only received one class on macro. A lot of it was concentrated on micro and meso, getting you prepared for your clinical experiences, and a little brief about macro. And it really concentrates on how we connect that to micro. Or it's heavily on advocacy, 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 advocacy in the policy realm. And as much as I love that, there's so much more to macro, more than we ever thought, more than students think. And as a practice, we have to do better talking about what is macro, the entities of it, you know, and really educating the next generation of social workers and all of you on the different things that you can do in macro, because it is not just policy. So macro, as you all remember, it's that large scale focus. It's the work with the community. It's the work with large entities. It's trying to take the micro issues and finding larger solutions for them. I was a micro practitioner back in the day, but I also remember when I was working with my clients, I hit a ceiling because there was nothing else that I can do. Because in my little office, I had to follow the guidelines and the policies and the procedures set forth by my management. And then they had to follow those procedures based on what the community wanted. And community had to follow based on what the government was putting down. So I had a limit, as much as I thought I didn't, because I was superwoman. I was that newbie social worker that could save everybody. I quickly learned that there was a limit to what I could do. So I learned to grow into macro, seeing that for me to be able to help my clients, I had to look at the bigger picture, the larger scale, looking at organizationals in my community and how I can partner with them, looking at how is my community made up. A lot of the things that my clients were dealing with, it's not because of who they were, but because of the environment that they were in. Always remembering that person in the environment piece of it. Environment, it plays so much into opportunities and being able to have accessibility. And then looking at that public policy and what they have done to change our environment and the impacts that it has. So when we look at macro practice, we're also looking at it from those three different entities: the administration and management practice, that community practice, and the policy. We're going to get to the policy later, but we want to spend and give our due diligence to the administration, management, and community practice. Who you see tonight that will be talking to you, we're community practice. We are NASW Florida. We are here for the larger, broader community of social workers. We are here in the entity to support them, to guide them, to hear their concerns and bring those concerns forth, to make those networks and partnerships, with entities like Vot-ER, who you're going to hear from tonight, and the League of Women Voters as well, so that we can broaden our reach and be able to help our members, and those then members can then help their clients. And then there's the administration and management practice piece, where many social workers, we think, okay, well, I'm going to have my own private practice, but you have to oversee that. That's a management component of it. If you're an executive director, like our fearless leader, she may have never thought she was going to be an executive director of an organization, but now here she is. That is a management administration role. Macro is not defined by boots on the ground, banging on your legislator's door. It's about what we're doing in our community and how we're engaging with those communities. And where do you find us macro practitioners? Well, of course, you're going to find us in policy, in legislative offices, in our local and state policy research firms, analyst organizations, social service agencies that have an entity for policy and advocacy, political campaigns. And of course, you could be a politician yourself, a wonderful legislator who can bring all the ethical values and all the information that we're taught. We are really qualified for that role. Don't count yourself out. You also can find us in the organizational and community environment. Large public settings, small settings, private and nonprofit, for profit. I know that's that dirty word that we don't like to talk about in social work, right? We are the nonprofit organization, but you can find us in for-profit, big, large businesses that hire social workers to do their DEI work, if that's still allowed in your state. And also in regards to working with conflict management, stress management, and helping their employees. We're in sports social work as well, and I know my colleague is going to talk a little bit about that. That's community environment, helping the larger, broader group of individuals that are in there. Those players go through so much, away from their families, on the road a lot. There's so much uncertainty. Mental health is a huge component in there. That's macro pieces of it. Then there's the community environment, faith-based organization, public development, human services agency, a lot of field organizing, but not in the realm of trying to get somebody to the polls, but trying to get an understanding of services, doing needs assessment, community-based asset mapping, grant writing for the larger community, working for organizations that oversee many community providers because they are the coalition for that area. There's so many aspects that we are, as macro practitioners, are located in. And I'm going to hand this over to my colleague Sharon, who's going to talk to you a little bit about those opportunities in these environments.
Thank you, Christina. Can everyone hear me okay? I just want to make sure. Okay. So thank you for being here tonight. I can see that some of my prior students joined in and know a little bit of about my story, but tonight is about you. So what is macro? And I've always said this in my human behavior and social environment too, right? Where micro meets macro. And everyone wants to know, what is it beyond, you know, the diagnosing can I do in this profession? A lot of people I've heard from my students tell stories about why they became a social worker. And it all sounds macro to me. And I was like, this is why, you know, I have a passion for macro level practitioners and why I love to do what I do. So advocacy and community organizing, as Christina said, most of these roles, you know, don't have to necessarily be running for office, right? And a lot of times when my students ask me, well, what can I do as macro, right? And so I tell them, what are you looking for in the search engine? Because every time we go out, we hear, you know, different professions where we are embedded, right? And our director, executive director, Don Brown, we always coming up with ideas. Is this macro, right? So you'll know that advocacy and community organizing doesn't necessarily have to mean that you have to run for office, right? So it could be being a part of a panel. It could be being a part of a board. We're sometimes asked to be in spaces, right? Because they want our input. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to run for office, but we can also run for community organizing groups, right? So we could be a part of that as well, right? So depending on where you're at, you know, this is a form of engagement that brings people together, right? So if you're interested in doing that type of work, there's a lot of room for you to grow in that area. Program development, right? So again, we look at agencies, non-for-profit agencies, that we are also asked to be consultants, right? That we're asked to be brought in to look at their program to see if it's working or not working, right? So this is also macro level work. Again, we think that these spaces may be just limited to just clinical or licensure, but a lot of these positions are open to just graduate students and even BSW students. I've seen them get positions in these areas. Research and evaluation, right, equals consultant. I always tell my students, be innovative in that space. Now as professors, we're now using the platform to have students be a part of research. You're going to see that a lot often where you're invited to these conferences where you can present or co-present with your professor. This is one way for you to understand, you know, how research is important in our field of education, right? So it's not just about the research, it's also about the evaluation and how you could bring that into an agency that may need some consulting, right? And so that you could brand yourself. So it's not just one or the other. So I always say research plus evaluation now gives you that opportunity to be a consultant. Policy work, right? So we think about being a legislative committee chair. As again, look at your NASW chapter, right? We run for positions. I never thought that I would be in a position to run as president. I never thought that I can do that, right? But this is macro level work, right? So we can be in these spaces, right? So get involved with your NASW chapter. Use your membership. I always tell the students, I was always afraid to use my membership to my benefit. I was always intimidated by what if I don't get the position? There's a lot of growth in social work, and we sometimes that fear prevents us from doing the work that we do. But if you would have asked me 11 years ago when I became a social worker, if I would be standing here, I probably couldn't tell you that I would. But look at where I'm at, right? So you'll hear a lot of these stories about how people got into these spaces, and it was through macro social work, right? And then leadership. I've seen a lot of my students brand their name and how they use their social work profession coupled with, you know, a dual degree and became leaders in open organizations and agencies, so that it doesn't have to be just about academia. It also could be about you branding yourself, right? So use these dual degrees, right? So I have students that go into journalism, become attorneys, they become doctors, and they become finance. And I tell the story of Susie Orman, who had a bachelor's in social work, and look at where she's at now, right? She's a financial advisor, right? And no one ever thought that social workers could brand out, but there's a skill that she has that social workers bring into, you know, in a room that you really can't get from another discipline. So I always say use the skills that you have as a social worker to brand. There's corporate social work, right? So now we're in these spaces. How does that look like, right? You can work for a bank, or you can work for an organization as a CEO, right? Understanding sports social work. This is something that my supervisor, Dawn Brown, our executive director, came across, that we like, wow, how can, you know, sports social work would be about social work, right? Well, it's about well-being, right? Well-being of the sports. Think about what's going on now, right? With transgender sports and things like that that's going on in the media, right? This is a space for us to be in, right? When these policies are being made. Someone put in the chat financial social work, right? That's another avenue that you can do micro work. So this is a bunch of stuff that's outside the realm of just running for office, right? So people think, oh yeah, it just has to be that I have to represent the state. You don't have to. There's a lot of spaces and places that we can be in that makes you a macro social worker. Even environmental social work has been something that, again, I can put a bunch of circles here about what macro is, and it won't fill it up. But I can tell you that your degree and why you're here should not deter you, right, from doing what you want to do. You just have to be innovative in this space, and we're going to show you how you can do that here today. Thank you.
So if we haven't convinced you why micro meets macro, here's our real pitch, why macro needs micro. If you look at some of the data that's out there, there is a gap. There is a gap between macro social workers and micro social workers. And when I look at it, a lot of it has to do with us. And by us, I mean social work educators. We have concentrated so much on micro social work that we haven't done a fair enough job to all of you to show you why micro fits perfectly at macro and why all the work of macro cannot be done without micro. Less than half of accredited social work education programs give you all as students opportunities to engage in macro. Just think about it. I'm a director of internship. I had to work hard to build my macro partnerships. When I came into the role, we had none. And that's not uncommon. If you're a student in an internship and you got your list or however you looked at it, I would put money on it. It is heavily into micro than it is evenly divided between micro and macro. When you look at the courses, like I explained, most of them are micro. And even the electives are heavily on micro instead of macro components of it. That's on us. So when we look at then LCSWs and MSWs that are in practice, we see why they believe that the work of macro social workers is solely for them. They say, well, they've been trained in that. That's their role. That's their job. They got it. Because remember, there's 3 levels, micro, meso, macro. I'm a micro social worker. They're a macro social worker. And that's why we see the statistic that says that only half of licensed clinical social workers are even engaged in macro work, if they are at all, because they just haven't seen the connection. But here's what I can tell you. That may have worked in the past, but where we are present day on some of these issues and how all these issues are being connected from the federal to the state to now our local governance, the time has come to say we can no longer be a micro, meso, macro. We have to be the collective social work profession. We have to learn from each other. I can't go out and talk to our legislators if I don't know what you're seeing. And also you are going to hit a ceiling like I did. And you're going to need to see, who do I contact? How do I contact them? How do I get involved? It's all interconnected. So we need to pair it together, because the thing is, we all believe in the same things. If you're a micro social worker or macro social worker, we all believe that injustice, inequality, and inequity cannot be lessened unless we all get involved. I always like to remind my students that we are called social workers. The social part is important. That means we can't do this work on our own. We are not in our offices, doors closed, not talking to anybody. Those are other careers. And if we all like that, we would have been there. This is a social work profession. We need to engage not just with our clients, but we need to engage with each other, within our communities, within this collective. We also all follow the code of ethics and the principles of social and economic justice. There is no macro code of ethics. There's no micro code of ethics. There is no macro principles, micro principles. It's all the same. And if you look at those code of ethics, it clearly says that we have to support the greater society and the greater community. And we are all working to dismantle the isms, racism, sexism, classism, ageism, We can't do that independently. Yes, we may be able to dismantle some of our clients, but those clients are still in the larger community. And there are people in our community that will never come through our doors, but still need help and assistance and advocacy for them. So we believe in it. So this is the perfect pairing. We are coupled together. I'm going to throw out a Friends reference because I'm a big Friends fan. Like Phoebe said, when Ross and Rachel, they were lobsters. Micro and macro, they're lobsters together. We're paired together. And we need to be paired together. Eric Liu, if you do not know him, I adore him. He is one of my favorite speakers. I got to meet him numerous times. He's a mentor for me as well. And he believes so much in the idea of democracy, upholding democracy, re-energizing democracy, but believing in democracy. And this is one of my favorite quotes that he says. He says, "We are not just specters or an audience awaiting the action of the next scene, held in suspense. We are the authors too of what happens next." And that's what we do. We entered this profession because, as everybody says, we like to help people. But that doesn't mean we like to help only the people that come into our offices and only the people that tell us what their needs are. It is our job as social workers to expand that. I always say I will be happy to retire if there is no need for a social worker. And yes, that's a silly dream of mine, and we probably won't get there, but how wonderful would it be if we all had come together to solve some of the issues in our community, bring attention to those issues? Because again, we are the authors of what happens. We are not the audience. And even if we weren't social workers, as citizens, as constituents, we are still the authors. And if you can feel that, if you exuberate that, you can bring that into your micro practice, and then your clients will feel that. And that's that ripple effect that will go from you to your client to your community. So how do you do it? So I'm going back to those levels, micro, meso, macro. There are levels in advocacy too. And I always like to be very cognizant and aware that not everybody is at the same level as Dawn, Sharon, or myself, right? We've been in this game for a little while, and I think we look good doing it. But there are some that are just coming in. You may have joined tonight because you're interested in macro. Maybe you're not getting enough within your university or your program or your internship, and you just want to learn more, but you're not ready yet to pull the Band-Aid out. You're not ready to do the cannonball into the pool. You just want to learn and grow and educate yourself and see, what is this about? What really is macro? And that's that micro. You're right now a sponge. You're going to get as much information as possible, and you're going to see, is this something that you can do? And I'm going to tell you yes, but when you're ready to get there. Then there's the meso. You got the info, you know what it's about, you're ready to go, you just need more opportunity. So you want to collaborate, you want to engage, you want to start sharing resources, you want to start doing things on your campuses and networking. You want to start building your collective. And then there's that macro level. Those are my people that are doing the work right now. They just need a little bit more guidance. Those are the ones that are ready to, what I always say, storm the castle. But I like to preference, we're never burning down the castle, we just storm. And we're always just trying, we're at this level of doing a lot more engagement. And we're going to look at how you can do some interventions tonight that hits that micro level if you're there, hits that meso level if you're there, or if you're at macro, how we can expand your networking and your growth. So let's start with micro. And we are going to go ahead and share this presentation with all of you. So If you're like, wait, what was that? Where do I get this info? It's coming to you, don't worry. So the first resource that we want to share with you is called ActiVote. And ActiVote is an app. It's for Androids and for Apple users. It's something that you can easily download. And I usually tell my students that are just entering social work, so first semester BSWs, this app, but I also think this is a really fantastic app to share with clients, to share with individuals that are just, they know a big election is coming up in November, but they don't know where to get information from. This is a wonderful app that you can help them navigate. It helps them find their polling location. It helps them understand the political field, right? Many people don't want to get involved because it's so polarizing. And if you think about it, you can go on certain websites and certain news media and you'll see one side. And then if you go to another, you'll find another. But you don't see that middle of the ground. How do we combine this side to that side? And this app really shows you all the different sides, all the different colors of the issue right here in the app, so you can make a more well-informed decision. It actually, it talks to you about policy and how it works within your state. So every state is slightly different with their sessions, how long, how many, how long is their sessions, how governors versus their senators, what they call their different respective houses and things like that. It's different for everybody. This gives you a really good overview of what your state is like. It allows you to track elected officials and legislation. So if there are bills that you see on TV or your clients see on TV, they can go into the app, they can pull it up, and they can start tracking it right from there. And it just gives you a lot of great information right at your fingertips. Our job as micro-social workers is never to impede our thoughts, our feelings, our practices. We are a nonpartisan profession, but it's also our job to give information and give them the information to empower and make them make a well-informed decision. And this ActiVote app is a wonderful one outside of the numerous other ones that are out there. I know Vote 411 from the League of Women Voters is an amazing one as well. There's so many out there. This is just another one to put into your toolkit. Other things to think about if you're in that micro, how do I get more information? And this slide is a wealth of information. The first one is attending your NASW chapter's lobby day. I know I saw some in the chat saying that they are going to attend. Here in Florida, we have ours coming up in early February. This is such a wonderful opportunity to participate, but not feel forced to engage so much with your legislators, but just get to see the lay of the land. I went to my first lobby day, not as a student, because it wasn't offered to me as a student, to be honest with you. I went as a faculty member. And I went on this lobby, on our lobby day, we call it LEAD. And I said, oh my gosh, this is where I'm meant to be. This is it. Walking through the Capitol, seeing these legislators, seeing how they make decisions, seeing how normal everyday people were going up in committees and just talking about why this bill was bad or why this bill is so important. That one trip, that one experience is what changed me from micro to macro. I always had a bit of macro in me, but that's what solidified it for me, seeing the bigger process. This experience is such an amazing experience. If you want to go beyond that, there's some really wonderful macro organizations, such as ACOSA, the Institute for Social Policy, NSW-N, or United for Macro. These are great organizations that are macro focused for practitioners, but so super friendly to students. There are membership fees for all three of them, but the membership fees are not expensive. And particularly with ACOSA, they'll have student chapters that you can start at your university. that they will support you. Another great way, because we're all on social media, is to create a macro social work student network. And you can find the MSWSNs either on Facebook or Twitter. Oh, did I freeze? Can you all hear me? Okay, good. Because I saw my screen freeze for a little bit. Okay, these are wonderful social media, wonderful organizations that you can start, chapters that you can start. And if you want more information, find them on Facebook, find them on Twitter. I know Facebook is a little like, I think that's for the old ones, but I'm still there. I like it. So definitely find them at either location, or join the Macro Social Work Twitter chats. They happen on Thursdays from 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern time. They have wonderful different topics that happen. They don't happen every time, but they do happen, and they'll give you a call out when they are having a chat. Another one is the National Social Work Voter Mobilization Campaign, or the Voting is Social Work, or BSW. I'm going to talk a little bit about them. They are my jam. I adore them. This is a wonderful group of individuals that comes out of the University of Connecticut with some stellar trailblazer macro social workers who have founded this, whose job is trying to get students to implement voter engagement on their campuses, and including voter engagement in your learning plans for your internships. There's also Crispin, the Congress Social Work Caucus. There are social workers in Congress, believe it or not. We are there. We are in many spaces, as Dr. Gondria Javier was saying. But just seeing what that caucus is, who's in it, what they're doing, their agenda, their purpose, is another great opportunity to look at. I'm always about run for office. I don't think we should sleep on that dream. I believe we are completely 100% qualified. The legislator that John got to meet today, he was a social work student at one of our universities. He went from being a social work student to working in the community, and now he is a Florida House of Representatives. Look, he probably didn't have that in his vision board, but look where he is now doing the good work. If you would like to run for office, or want to know how to run for office, or just want to see what that process is like, because you're a nosy Nelly like me, contact the Humphrey Institute of Political Social Work at UConn. They do numerous trainings, 2 different trainings, ones that are just kind of want to look and see what the process is, and then those that really want to run for office, and they're going to give you the steps, the resources of how to do it. And then the other thing is, again, like Sharon said, we are about research and evaluation. You could always contribute or revise our macro articles on the online encyclopedia for social work. Another wonderful opportunity for you. If you are a BSW, here's another opportunity for you. We are getting better at trying to include macro into our degrees, particularly for MSWs. I didn't have the privilege of, when I was picking out my MSW, to find a macro concentrator, even a slightly macro elective in my MSW programs. Everything was clinical. But we have done a better job, thanks to the Special Commission to Advance Macro Social Work. And right now, there are over 100 schools of social work, masters of social work schools across the United States that are invested in macro social work, where they have degree concentrations either in policy, leadership, research and evaluation, community organizing, and social justice. So if you are a BSW and you're saying, I really like what I'm doing in my program, but I know I'm a macro person, look at these opportunities. Just go to the website it's macrosocialwork.org. That is the website for the Special Commission to Advance Macro Social Work, and you'll see the list of schools that are macro focused. Like I said, look at the map, they're all across the United States. more heavily in the East, Northeast in particular, but you can also reach out to me. Like I said, I put my LinkedIn info. If you would like to get the list, I'd be happy to send that to you as well. The other thing I'll quickly say before I move off of that slide is I love the work that I do. I love having an MSW behind my name, and I support all those that get the PhD, the DSW, the LCSW as well. But I also know that, as we have said, our degree is transferable and we can go in many different directions. So if you are a BSW and you're looking at some of these schools and it's not going to be financially feasible, or you're not going to be able to attend that school because of the platform they're in, or they're too far from you, you know, really think about that clinical program as an option and infuse the macro content in there in your research and the topics that you do, bringing that into the classroom. But then also, you can always look at maybe getting a degree in public health, maybe getting a degree in something else that's like-minded. Because here's the thing, you are never going to lose the skills that you learn from in your BSW. You're never going to lose the passion that you had, which is why you went into that BSW. You can always be proud to call yourself a social worker. But remember, we're a social profession, we're an interdisciplinary profession. Now I'm going to move into my mezzo. So you got the info, you're ready to go, you want to share. And there's great ways for you to do that right there at your university. One of the things that I like to talk about is how we can collaborate and how we can engage. And I am proud to share the case study from my university at St. Leo, and that is our voter engagement. So I talked to you briefly about this is the Vot-ER social work organization. They have a toolbox called the Why Vote campaign. That's what we have affectionately called us at St. Leo, the Why Vote campaign. It is an 8-week step-by-step guide of how to do a voter registration drive on your campus. Nonpartisan voter registration is legal. It is allowed at your campus, and it's something that's so easy to do, particularly, shout out to my Vot-ER, if you incorporate their system, but I'm not going to trample on their spotlight because they're going to talk to you next. What we have done is numerous voter engagement activities on our campus, from tabling events to partnering with our Greek life organizations, where our sororities and our fraternities went into a voter registration bowl to win a trophy to see who could get the most voter registration or pledges to help those get to the polls the next election. We've worked with our athletics department. We had our basketball team spotlight us one night. So to be able to get in, you had to show proof that you're registered, or we could help you register right then and there. If you couldn't register for whatever reason, we talked about a plan to help you talk to other people about it, and that gave you your admission. And they did numerous voting statistics throughout the night, during timeouts, during halftime or quarter. I'm not a sports person that much. I don't know what that's called. And then they gave us a shout out at the end. Our academic advisors, anytime that they have a freshman come in during their first initial academic advising, we have trained them to ask them, are you registered to vote? And then they give them the opportunity to do that. We use our social media. We use our on Instagram, Twitter, on TikTok to get these messages out. And I am so proud to say that we've been doing this since 2019, and we continuously grow and adapt and get as many people registered, or give them the information of what they need to do to prepare for the next election. And you can do this easily on your campus. If you don't want to do voter registration, other ways that you can do it is having voter engagement workshops and talks. We did an MLK Remembrance Day on MLK, in which we talked about his mission and his legacy, and how we as students and as faculty can carry on the legacy of advocacy. On February 16th, we're going to have, in honor of Black History Month, we're going to do a conversation of voter suppression in communities of color, what laws are put in place to stop like souls to the poll, being able to distribute water and snacks on food lines, and what that does for community of colors. And then we're all going to have a movie night on our big lawn, which is All In, the Fight for Democracy, based out of Georgia. For Women History Month, we're going to collaborate with our own Women League of Voters to talk about women in politics and the trends there and how we can be more inspirational. And we're going to continue our Pride Month. We do this every year, but we partnership with a community health organization that specifically works with our LGBT plus community. And we're going to partner doing a town hall training in how to work with our transgendered individuals and their voting rights. So many different opportunities just at the meso level. And I am excited to introduce my collaborator, I can't speak enough of them. My collaborator, our supporters, the ones that have helped us with our own voter registration drive at St. Leonard University, Vot-ER, so that they can talk to you about how you can use their system, their campaigns in this meso level of advocacy. So it is my sincere pleasure to introduce Reed as he talks to you a little bit about Vot-ER.
Thank you so much, Christina. I mean, I say it all the time. It was such a pleasure getting to work with you. I'm super hyped for this year and what we can accomplish together. I'm gonna share my screen and just want to let you know, you really like hyped me up. I think I'm going back to school. I want to become a social worker. I think I found, I don't know, I'm serious. So thank you for that. But I'm gonna share my screen. Can y'all see my screen? I think it's loading. Awesome. So hi, everyone. My name is Reed Garnett. I am the Southeast Deputy Field Director here at Vot-ER. I am super excited to briefly talk about Vot-ER with y'all, what we do, and to briefly discuss our Healthy Democracy campaign that Christina touched on a little bit earlier. So Vot-ER is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to integrate civic engagement into healthcare. We develop nonpartisan civic engagement tools and programs for pretty much every corner of the healthcare system for healthcare workers, social workers, healthcare advocates, social work students, medical students, all united by a common vision that healthy communities are powered by an inclusive democracy. We work to provide the community the opportunity to register to vote, because the reality is that much of our healthcare system and healthcare experiences are determined by the policies our elected officials implement. So your access and affordability to a myriad of different healthcare and mental health services are determined by who we vote into power. So as an organization, we help to build patient advocacy at the intersection of health and civic engagement. So why do we do this work? So approximately 51 million eligible people in the United States are not registered to vote. So the big question we're asking is, why are so many people unregistered? And one of the main reasons for this is that many people have just never been asked to register. Research has shown that over 60% of adult American citizens have never been asked to register to vote. And at this rate, it's similar among both registered and unregistered individuals. The most common context in which individuals are asked to register is at motor vehicle agencies, social service agencies, or other government offices. But if voter registration opportunities existed in every healthcare space, this percentage would change dramatically. So by making voter registration more accessible and convenient, social work and healthcare professionals could play an important role in increasing voter participation in our democracy. So in this next section, I'm going to briefly go over the connections between voting and health. So voting is a powerful tool for advocating for what we care about, including our health. Research has shown that increased voter participation can lead to healthier communities by giving individuals more autonomy and a sense of connectedness through the democratic process. So by empowering patients or clients to think about how policy impacts their life, we can give them the agency to make informed decisions about their health. Additionally, addressing the social and structural determinants of health through the power of voting can lead to more comprehensive and effective solutions for improving health outcomes. It's important to remember that healthcare is not just about treating illnesses, but also about addressing those underlying factors that contribute to poor health. And in this next section, I'm just going to go over a little bit of the tools and resources that we have, and then dive in a little bit about the programs we run. So Vot-ER is a great way for social workers, healthcare workers to demonstrate their commitment to voting rights and health equity, as it provides an easy, nonpartisan method for registering patients or clients to vote. The program is completely optional and won't disrupt your workflow. Additionally, Vot-ER is politically neutral, so we won't promote any particular political agenda or candidate, but it's a great way to empower clients and patients to help tackle the health disparities we witness in many spaces across American healthcare. Well, Vot-ER has made it super easy for professionals at all levels of healthcare to incorporate civic engagement into their daily routine. We provide compliant, safe, and nonpartisan tools like individual badge backers, like I have right here. Folks that are doing Zoom calls or participating in this virtually. We have our Zoom backgrounds with our QR code that brings folks to a landing page. We also have digital posters. We have physical patient/client handouts and conversation starters on our website. So if you're feeling apprehensive about breaking up these types of conversations, I'm not going to lie, when I first started my organizing career, it was a little uncomfy to bring up these sorts of conversations with folks. So we provided certain scenarios that you can use to spark the conversation up and get a little more comfortable with it. It directs you to a user-friendly portal after someone scans this QR code, or they can type the link that's on this badge. It's very small, but you can't see it, but it brings them to a landing page where you can check your voter registration, you can get yourself registered to vote. We also have a portal where you could check what the voter ID laws are in your state. So a lot of great information on how to get yourself registered and what you need when you come to the polls and get out to vote. And actually, Bianca Navarro, our fearless field director, is on the call right now. And she's going to be dropping a link to order yourself a free Vot-ER badge if you'd like to check it out and start using one. And lastly, just because we're in a room full of students, and I really think this is a really cool program, it's personally my favorite that we run at Vot-ER, is the Healthy Democracy Campaign. So it's a nationwide voter registration drive led by healthcare and social work students. The Healthy Democracy Campaign is a part of a vital movement that seeks to strengthen and protect democracy at every level. A healthy democracy leads to positive health outcomes in communities by working to promote participation, safeguarding voting rights, and support civic engagement. The campaign is helping to build a more just and equitable and healthier society for all. Participating schools receive free materials and compete to register the most eligible voters. In 2023, we helped over 8,000 patients, clients, students, colleagues, community members to register to vote. Shout out to Christina and her team, because you were a huge part of that this year and years prior. And actually, Christina took home the golden ballot box. Her and her team of social work students won the competition this year. So shout out to you guys. And just to wrap this up, I just want to, Bianca is going to drop the sign-up link. If this interests you, if you want to read a little bit more about the Healthy Democracy Campaign, she's going to drop it in the chat for y'all to check out. And then also, too, just to touch on it, if this seems like something that you're not ready to fully dive into, we also have a fellowship program. That's about a 6-month-long program, but you take organizing classes in bite-sized pieces, and we train you up to be an organizer. You can develop a campaign plan over the course of that 6 months, adapted to what you would like to do. And she's also going to drop that in the chat as well. And that's very brief, but that's all I have for y'all today. And I'll pass it back to Christina.
Thank you, Reed and Bianca. Shout out to that team. They are fabulous. I can't tell you how easy Vot-ER makes it for faculty and students to engage in voter registration. If you are a blue state, if you are a red state, if you're a purple state, being able to use those QR codes You don't need to know all the rules of what's in everybody's state. It will direct those students. It will direct your clients if you do this in your internships. It's so easy. You just have to do the ask. And those conversational starters is so important to read through. And I put in the chat, you can translate those conversational starters into your agency's intake forms. Everybody has an intake form. How easy would it be to put in, are you registered to vote? Yes or no? Would you like information on registering? Yes or no? You don't even have to ask then. You did the work on the form. All you have to do then is let me scan my QR code on my phone or my badge and we'll get you started. So it is easy breezy. I really highly recommend that you reach out to Vot-ER. I'm very biased for Bianca and Reed, but they have a fabulous team across the board. And I'm going to pass it to Dawn to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you so much, Reed. Thank you, Christina, for that, for sure. I am excited that we are able to have somebody here, Demetrius Fisher from the League of Women Voters. I've done some local work, but it's great to have Demetrius from the national office. Demetrius currently serves as a Southeast Regional Organizer. In this role, he plays an important role. He supports the organizing strategy to build power at the state and national level to secure wins aimed at expanding the freedom to vote. Just to give you an idea, Demetrius's focused work is in Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. But a super shout out to Demetrius because in the few days that I've been able to get to know him over the last week or so, he's actually already correcting us to his national office. He wants to connect to national NASW for a partnership to work so that we can do this great work throughout. So thank you for that. Demetrius also served as the national campaign manager for the People-Powered Fear Maps. This is a program to advocate for the creation of equitable, accurate maps in all 50 states and to educate about redistricting. You heard Christina talk a lot about voting and things like that, and the importance of equitable, accurate maps is so important in this. Demetrius has a bachelor's of business administration and also a master of science degree. Began his career in grassroots organizing with the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, where he's been involved and active. Please know he's also an advocate for underserved communities and social justice initiatives. Demetrius is caring and has a commitment to the betterment of communities. So let me say thank you so much, Demetrius, for spending a couple minutes with us here today for our students and those in attendance to learn more about all the great work that I know the League of Women Voters does.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm really excited to be in this space and to be learning and sharing with each of you the work that the League has been engaged in. As many of you probably know or may not know, this is not the League of our grandparents years ago. This is a new transformed League where we are on this transformation journey, where we are really refocusing and reshifting and making sure that we are applying our DEI, but also making sure that we are being a little bit more engaging and enticing and making sure that folks that want to enter in democracy space have the opportunity to do so. So thank you so much for the invitation. I'm not going to be before you long, but just want to say
I think we might have lost Demetrius.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Okay. So our mission at the League is really it's kind of going in and out for whatever reason, but nonetheless, it's to empower voters while we are defending democracy and the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization, as many of us have already mentioned, focused at the grassroots level, working to protect and expand voting rights and ensure that we have a representative democracy. We empower voters through democracy, through advocacy, education, and litigation at all levels. That includes the local, state, and national levels. The membership in the League, we have representation in all 50 states plus the District of Columbia. where we have more than 700 leagues across the country. And this is a great opportunity for you as social workers to really engage and get involved in this democracy space because it's so critical, especially in a time where we are kind of jumping back out to things outside of COVID and just dealing with folks and kind of, how they're approaching this democracy space. So this is a great opportunity for folks to really get involved, and we hope that you will do just that. More specifically in Florida, we have 29 leagues, so that we are next week actually gearing up for our lobby days, the 23rd and 24th in Tallahassee. And the league is really expanding our membership base, whereas our membership has really, to be honest, screwed on the older side. We're on this whole transformative journey where we're actually reaching out to new generational leaders. And specifically in Florida, we are engaging with 6 college campuses that are going to be joining us on college at our lobby days next week, and also going to be creating college level League of Women Voters chapters. So we're really excited about the amazing work that the LWV of Florida is doing. We just finished up the end of last year what we were called Power of the South, which was a tour across the southern states to really ensure that we are setting ourselves up for success as we engage in this democracy work for 2024, as elections are. It's always a busy season for us. No election is not an off season at all. So we want to make sure that folks are getting the information and that we are not parachuting in and then out, but that we have a constant presence on the ground to make sure that folks can find their intersectionality point. And people often ask us a lot of times, Demetrius, why do y'all recruit? Why do y'all go out and solicit new members? We recruit because we need fresh new blood. This work is hard, but it's rewarding. So we don't want to be in a position for the next 50 years. We want to train up our next cohort of leaders to be able to take the baton, to continue the work moving, bring new and fresh ideas to the work. And that's why, we are appealing to you guys today and hoping that you will consider joining the league and consider us as a trusted thought partner and leader in this democracy space. We do have some league specific resources that we often like to share. As alluded to earlier, our Vote 411, we consider that our one-stop shop for all of your voting needs. You can register to vote, you can check your voter registration status. You are also able to get information on candidates because we do have a section that you can say, I don't know who I need to vote for, but you can go in and see which candidates pair up to the needs for your community and for your specific family. So we urge you to check out Vote 411 to make your voting plan. And hopefully all of you are planning to vote in this upcoming election season. So make sure that there's been a lot of purges. So we want to make sure that all of our registration statuses are actually current. We also have a tool that we use. It's called League in Action. This is an opportunity because majority of the states in the Southeast are already in legislative sessions. There are several bad bills that are coming across the South that's going to impact all of us in some type of way. So we have a tool at the league called League in Action by Outreach Circle, where we're able to do push notifications and say, hey, contact your legislator, sign this petition. Here's an event we want you to be a part of, be able to share it with your family and friends, and making sure that they have a plan to vote as well. There's a QR code if you want to take a snapshot of that just to join the League of Women Voters League in Action Florida page. You can also do that. We do have pages for all of our states and also through the national if you're not specifically in Florida. The league birthday is coming up, February 14th, Valentine's Day. We will be 104 years old. We're excited that we've been able to empower democracy for more than 100 years and really want to invite you to join our virtual birthday rally at 11:30 Eastern Time on February 14th, surrounding the theme Empowering Our Democracy for 2024 with a specific focus on young voters. So we actually have some specific activities that you can take on League in Action. and be able to share that with your family and friends as well. We also invite you to join us in Selma, Alabama for the 59th anniversary of Bloody Sunday Bridge Crossing. That is coming up on March the 3rd, where we are providing transportation at selected colleges and universities across the Southeast to come and join us and cross the bridge with us together as we continue to mobilize and march for the vote in 2024. So if you're interested in that, there's a QR code where you can sign up and get more information, because we really want to make sure that we are calling upon all our young people and all of us that are young at heart to make sure that you have an opportunity and show up in this democracy space. So with that, Don, thank you so much for the opportunity, and happy to take any questions at that given time.
Thank you so much, Demetrius, and thank you, League of Women Voters, for all the great work that you do. Truly grateful, and great to hear happy birthday, happy early birthday. Great to hear that 104 years, and we look forward to 104 more. So thank you for those resources, and we're going to give time for folks to ask questions in a couple of minutes. And so thank you for being willing to stick around. I really appreciate your time and your wisdom, Demetrius. I'm going to hand it back over to Christina.
And so we wanted to just talk to you about 2 more resources before we move into our closing. And the reason we wanted to share these 2 is because what we have done, our students have done across these universities, have been fantastic work, but it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort. And we know that. So these are 2 wonderful organizations that are available to students to be able to do this work under a fellowship. So Campus Vote Project, which is across the United States, offers a democracy fellowship, in which if you partner with them, you can have 1 or 2 fellows come from your university that will be able to do nonpartisan voter registration on their campuses, get training on the different policies and procedures for voter registration within their state that the university is held in, be able to network with other students across the fellowship to get ideas, and most importantly, it's a paid fellowship. Students that are selected to do this fellowship earn a $750 stipend for the first time they do it, and then get bumped up to, I believe, a $900 stipend for the second time that they do it. Universities are responsible for selecting the fellowships. They just have to go through a process of a formal interview with their campaign director that comes from Campus Vote Project. And if you're interested in it, please head to the Campus Vote Project. You'll see the website on the screen now, and they'll be able to connect you with your particular person in your state, and then you can look at when is the next cycle for Democracy Fellows. Civic Influencers is another wonderful organization that does a fellowship. Their whole motto is to really look at empowering Generation Z, especially within minority serving institutions, trying to get as many those individuals empowered to register and head to the polls in any format. If that you want to concentrate on voter registration versus voter engagement, if you want to do it all. They are actually, their fellowship application is open right now. If you are selected for their fellowship, it is a $500 stipend per semester, in which you will work closely with the Civic Influencers organization and get your own individual trainings and support as well to do the work on your college campuses. I have 2 students. One is a fellow for Campus Vote Project. One is the fellow for Civic Influencers. And they are able to do this work because they're passionate about this work, but also receive some compensation because, again, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of planning. It's all the skills of macro management, macro advocacy. And they do deserve to get something for the wonderful work that they do. It also looks wonderful in an application, resume. It also looks wonderful in applying if you're applying to graduate schools as a BSW. So just another resources for you. And we've spoken a lot about voter registration and getting involved on your campuses. But again, go back to the broader idea of macro. And how you can implement some of these wonderful things that get involved, not just on your campuses, but in your internships and in your agency. And if we haven't convinced you enough, at least with the voting, let me throw out this one final statistic. In 2022, 34 US House races were decided by 1% or less of the votes. In some districts, we're really talking about a few hundred votes, a few hundred. Just imagine who those few hundred could have been. It could have been your clients. It could have been family members. It could have been colleagues. It could have been fellow students. It could have been your faculty. It is never too late to bring these things into your community, because a few hundred votes could have been the difference between who has power in that house. As we bring it all together, find what you're comfortable with. If you are still in that micro level, getting my feet wet, here's other things that you can do. Understand your election ballot. That thing can be confusing. Just being able to understand who are all these people. I thought I was just voting for the president, and then I see a senator and a representative and a mayor and a county commissioner. And what's the difference between city council and county commissioner? Ask those questions. As Demetrius says, there are little League of Women Voters right here in your backyard. They will help you. The Florida, your NASW chapter, they will help you. The Vote 411 and Vot-ER, they will help you. There's so many tools out there that will help you in learning your ballot. Learn about your chapter's priorities. Everybody has different legislative priorities. What is your chapter concentrating on? And as always, steer into the gray. So, social media has wonderful algorithms that likes to keep us in those boxes. And that's our confirmation bias. We are never going to learn the other side if we don't engage in other different resources and services. Doesn't mean we're trying to change what you believe in. We just wanted you to expand your talking points so that we can make headway. If you're in that mezzo level, other areas that you can do is write a letter to an elected official or a letter to your editor to get your voice out into your community. NASW many chapters have wonderful advocacy toolkits. Within those toolkits, it gives you samples of how you can write a letter to an elected official or editor. You can meet with an elected official. Again, lobby day is a wonderful way to do that. But I'm pretty sure we all have resources on what you do in those meetings. Just reach out and become an election worker. I did this past election year. Not many people know this. You get paid to be a poll worker. So if you're looking for some extra cash, this is a wonderful opportunity to do this, but also for you to engage in democracy. There's so much hesitancy and untruths about what happens when we go to the polls. Here you are representing as a social worker, a member of your community, and then showing other people that you trust the process, so they should trust the process. And if you're at that highest level, incorporate advocacy trainings into your internships, join one of those fellowships, create your own macro movement. If that's partnering with your local faith-based organization to do souls to the polls, whatever you can do, these are great ways for you to engage in that. And as we close, I'm going to pass it on to my fearless leader, Dawn.
Thank you very much, Christina. Such wonderful ways to get involved. I saw a few things. I've been trying to monitor the chat the best I can. Such great excitement. One thing I wanted to point out to you and really demonstrate, I want to be reminded that there's strength in numbers. So I want to give a shout out in the chat. Bianca talked about how as a Vot-ER, they use the League of Women Voters and vice versa. Folks, we have these organizations because we can all win working together. Don't let anybody fool you to believe that we can only have one of these or two of these. No, we need all of these organizations to do the great work that we're doing, and grateful that we're here as NASW, the National Association of Social Workers, to be able to do work with those organizations also. So I really appreciate that collegiality, right? Our profession calls us to do that at all levels of practice, the micro, the meso, and the macro. And so I'm going to invite you all, as you can see, you might be able to, I'll read what's on the screen. What is one thing you could take from this presentation, put to work? I invite you to use the chat. What is one thing? Now, we got a lot of resources. I've been taking notes over here because some things I didn't know about and I need to check up on too. What is one thing that you can take from this presentation you heard today and put to work? So let's see who can get us started in the chat. What would be one thing you can do? Whether it was a resource you heard, what you learned about the different micro, the meso, the macro, what is one thing that you can put to work and take from this presentation? And I invite you to use the chat to put that in there. Let's see. Hello from Tucson. Okay, hello. Be a poll worker. Thank you, Dwayne. Get started. You're right. Be a poll worker. That was a great idea. Thank you, Christina, for sharing that. I love that, Anna. Share the hope that macro is needed. Absolutely. That's being able to share, right? We talked about the micro, the knowledge, the education piece, being able to share how important that is needed. Active vote. Thank you, Reed, for being downloaded on your phone right now. Pedro, hello, Pedro. Just ordered the free Vot-ER badge. Consider running for office. I see that. See you there, Liz. We will cheer you on. Add voting information to your intake paperwork at internship. Absolutely. These are just wonderful ideas that you can take and bring with you and share with your classmates, share with your faculty, and share with others. Yes, folks are using that badge. With that in mind, one of the things I wanted to say is we have 55 chapters of NASW, wonderful colleagues that Dwayne and I get to work with across the country, and Guam and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. So I want to keep all that in mind. And so if you haven't already, I want to encourage you to reach out to your own state chapter. They need you. They want you. They want you to be involved. There are state student rep positions. There are board positions. There's committees. Please, your wisdom is needed. And I want to echo what Demetrius said earlier, is that we want to make sure we're building the future, right? And so we need to make sure we're giving opportunities to folks that are coming through programs and things now, because you are our future. So really want to make sure that we do that work. So if you haven't already, please reach out to your state chapter. With that being said, I know we're running tight on time, but I did want to offer, if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand or to type into the chat. If you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand or to type into the chat. Love that, Kathy. I want to not share my inspiration with family and friends to vote. So important. We work where we are in our circle. Good to see you, NASW Oregon and Idaho. Thanks for being here. Any questions? You can raise your hand or you can put in the chat. I just got a direct message question. Could you provide the link for the PowerPoint? Yes, I think Dwayne might have said we're going to post the recording with the PowerPoint on the NASW main page, right, Dwayne?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, we'll have the video recording up and the PowerPoint. One question I have, and it's also a comment question, and it goes back to something Christina, you said earlier, thinking about clinical intersection with macro. As an executive director at NASW, so much of the advocacy work we do is clinically based, whether it's access to service, reimbursements rates, paid internships, licensing, it all goes back to the folks doing the work on the ground. And so I don't want folks to think that you have to call yourself or work as a macro social worker. As a clinician and as a clinical social worker, we need you to be doing macro work as well and being, sharing that resources back to us, because clinicians have so much of the expertise and are intersecting with sometimes these barriers that exist at the systemic level. And that's where we can come collectively together, but we need that clinical voice and expertise also to help move the advocacy conversation forward. So I don't know if that was a question, but I just want to reiterate and thank you for calling that out earlier.
No, Dwayne, I think that's just another wonderful point to reiterate. And one thing I want to add to what you said, Dwayne, it's not just we need your input, but we literally need your voice. Remember, we talked about to you in the classroom that we will speak on behalf of our clients, but what's more empowering and what's more powerful is when our clients do it. Dwayne, Dawn, Sharon, Reed, Demetrius, myself, we can talk on your behalf at the clinical level of the things that you're seeing, the things that you need. But there's nothing more powerful than you coming and doing that. With you saying, this is what I'm seeing in my practice. These are the clients that are telling me day after day that this is what's happening. I can do that, but you can do it so much better. You write that story, you tell that story. You bring the passion, you bring these clients alive in what you share. You do it more justice than we could ever do. We need you. We'll be there and we will stand by you every step of the way, but we need your voice. Your voice is equally as powerful in these ideas.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Christina. And Dwayne, thank you for bringing that up. I think it's so important to reiterate that, because part of what makes our profession, the beauty and the strength of social work, is all levels of practice. In the Code of Ethics, and this is my social work educator hat, when we go back to 6.04, we have an ethical responsibility to our colleagues, the broader society, and our profession. And so that is where our advocacy kicks in, whether we're on the micro, the meso, and the macro level. So it's so important that we do that. And I have, as we're coming towards the end, you will notice that Sharon, Christina, and I have a background empowering social workers. That is our social work month theme. We want to empower you. I saw somebody in the chat feeling energized to go back to their BSW. We need you. We want to empower you. We want to encourage you to do this work. I put the link to the social work month off the main page in the chat, so you can feel free to look at that. The other link I'm going to put in here is looking for ideas. There's a virtual career fair coming up that's sponsored by NASW. That link it's on January 30th. And in closing, here's the one thing I want to do. First and foremost, we didn't do this, but I want to make sure we do this. Please join me in thanking Christina, Dr. Gandaria, Reed, Demetrius, and of course our host, Dwayne, for all that they've done to make sure that we could have this session for you. So they have been wonderful. So put your hands up, shout up, hand, heart, whatever you got to do to show them some love for all the work that they've done. Thank you for that. They brought us knowledge, they brought us resources, and a few things to consider. Let us not forget all levels of practice. It's not us versus them. We are one. Okay. And let us not forget this week, it's January 18th. Many of us had Monday off because of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And so with that, I want to leave us with this. As we invite you to be part of this advocacy journey with us, one of the many quotes I want to leave you with as we advocate for justice is this: true peace is not merely the absence of tension, it is the presence of justice. So I invite you to come get uncomfortable with us as we fight for the justice for so many that are underserved. And we do that at all levels, whether it's writing a letter, whether it's getting the knowledge, or whether it's finding training at your internship. I really thank you for taking the time to be with us this evening. And thank you for joining us, and just love to have you all in our profession. And with that said, I pass the virtual mic back over to our host, Dwayne, to close us out.
You did a great job. I'm not going to take any more time. Thank you all. We hope to see you at our February program, which will be on February 15th on exploring medical social work careers. If folks have any further questions or need anything after this, please feel free to email me. I will drop my email into the chat before we close. But I hope everybody has a great rest of your January. And we just thank you for spending your evening with us today. Thanks, everybody.